Hello and welcome to CINC Community's What Can I Automate? CINC Communications and Automations webinar. We run this webinar twice monthly and it will be recorded, so you'll receive a recording of this at the end of the webinar. In this webinar, we will be covering two of our automated features. The first is behavioral messaging and the second is auto tracks. So let's jump right in, get this information out. So that first feature we're talking about again is behavioral messaging. Behavioral messaging are automated text and email communication sent to your leads based on their behaviors. The goal is to start communication with those leads and increase your presence in their home buying process. It's allowing the CINC system to work for you to open those lines of communication with leads you haven't spoken to. So it's removing a lot of that manual work, tracking those leads down via text and email. It is a permission-based feature and it's agent controlled. And what I mean by that is you give your agents permissions to use this feature, and there's a set of 10 behaviors. They're going to be able to choose which behaviors they would like their leads to be engaged by. So it's a slightly controlled by the agent, but it is a permission-based feature. You're not able to edit the messaging at this time. We did a lot of research into the validity of this messaging, what the response rates were, making sure that we're not hurting your deliverability in any way. So we've kept those locked down. We do change them a couple times throughout the year to keep that messaging fresh, but also make sure that you're still getting those good response rates. So the behavioral messaging is not editable, but you can control which behaviors your leads are engaged on. The next automated feature we have is auto tracks. This is automated follow-up to keep your leads on the right track. It can be texts, it can be emails, it can be reminders. And then with one of our newest auto track types, you can also include tasks. So we have three types of auto tracks. The first type is going to be sequence. This is going to be your go-to auto track. If you've been with us long enough, this is our version of drip campaigns. Drips is the old, it's the bad, it's yucky. Auto track sequence is the new. It's where we're moving. It's where everything's going to go. So that sequence is going to be our go-to auto track type, and steps are going to be set in a specific sequence: day 1, day 3, day 7. So you're standardizing that follow-up process, that automated tracking there to keep them on the right track. Examples here are the speed to lead that we launch your sites with, reaching out to those new leads within that first 5 minutes. Other examples that we have built into the platform are some SOI follow-up, some long-term nurture. So those templates are all available to you, or you can build from scratch. The second type of auto track that we have is a calendar auto track. These are going to be date specific. So your steps are on specific dates or holidays. Our example here is the holiday auto track. We have a template for all of the major holidays in both US and Canada. You can also use this to send monthly newsletters. If you know all of your content up front, this is a great opportunity for the monthly newsletter. If you don't know all of your content up front, I probably wouldn't build an auto track. It'd just be a monthly email. But if you know your content up front, kind of what you want to talk about each month, and get some of that content out of there, use a monthly one, send on like the 5th of every month, something like that. And the last auto track type that we have is our checklist. This is a checklist of tasks for the agent to complete. The real value comes, because every contract to close, every listing appointment is going to have a slightly different time frame in between each step. And so the real value here is you can kind of, that, hey, these are the 10 things that happen every time I have a contract to close, but the dates might be different. The spacing between each step is different. So the real value here comes when you can add specific dates to those tasks. You automate the task list, you assign it to a lead, and then you set your due dates for each of those specific tasks. Auto tracks is a permission-based feature, and this is something that your agents can control on their level, or if you wanted to as a broker, you could just kind of standardize it across your entire platform, depending on how your team is structured. And then these are editable. So if you give your agents auto tracks permission, they're able to create and edit their own content. They can't edit what you've created if it's private, and we'll get into public-private in a moment, but large in part, this is an editable feature for your agents. So with that, I'm going to flip into one of our test sites here, CINC Pro Training, and I've added in a test lead. And first thing we're gonna do is show you where to turn those permissions on. So if you're a broker with us, you'll know where to do it. If you're an agent with us, this is where your agent will give you that permission. Permissions live under the Agents tab. And you'll click Edit Permission next to the agents you would like to turn this permission on for. You'll come down to Features, and it'll be Auto Tracks and Behavioral Messaging. And this is absolutely something that we'd recommend allowing your agents to utilize and have use of. It's going to be defaulted on for new sites going forward pretty soon because we see such value in these features. So absolutely something that you can have on. If you're a broker, turn it on for your team. If you're an agent, absolutely request it because it's just going to add additional value to your site. So once you have those permissions, let's show you where to go through those. We're going to go through behavioral messaging first, just because it's a little easier. There's less work on your side. It's the more automated of the two features. So we'll click into our automations tab. So again, behavioral messaging, permission based, agent controlled. So once that agent has the permission, they need to turn on which behaviors they would like their leads to be engaged by. So come to automations and behavioral messaging. All right, and you can see here the behaviors that are toggled on in blue are the behaviors that my leads will be engaged by. So again, behavioral messaging are automated behavioral messages sent via text. If we can't send a text, we'll default to an email. When your leads perform specific actions on your site, such as submitting a property inquiry, favoriting 3 properties in 14 days. So some of these behaviors you're going to be privy to based on your other notifications. Like if someone submits a property inquiry, if they submit a home valuation, you're going to get notified of some of these, but you're not always going to be able to reach out in a timely manner and engage based on that behavior, depending on what all else you have going on that day or that week. So having the system work for you is a great opportunity. So absolutely turn these behaviors on. These top 8 are going to be general behaviors, and that refers to a behavior that affects a new lead or an attempted contact lead. Again, the goal of behavioral messaging is opening the line of communication with leads you have not spoken to. So these top 8 are going to work with the leads you haven't spoken to, those new lead pipeline stage or the attempted contact pipeline stage. We also have our pipeline behavior. So we do allow you to work additional leads outside of the new and attempted contact. So we've added 2 pipeline behaviors so far. The first one is for your sold leads. So if a lead is in the sold pipeline stage and they return to your site after a year or more, you really have no way of knowing that they do that because they're not in the attempted contact stage. They're not pulling into your P filters. They're not a contacted lead with reminders. They're not falling into your F filters. That's a lead you could lose, and that's an opportunity. If a sold lead comes back, they've started their home search again. So let the system engage those leads when they return to your site. The other pipeline stage that will work for you is going to be the contacted pipeline stage. And so you get leads contacted all the time. You're doing your daily prospecting, you get them on the call, but you have someone that disappears on you. They stop answering your calls, they stop logging in. But let's say they log back into the platform. You really have no way of knowing that unless you're continuing to follow up every 2 to 3 weeks on those contacted leads. But it's still a lot of work for someone who's not logging in. So this is one that you can turn on for your contacted pipelines. If they return to the site after 30 days, you haven't made any call notes and you haven't set an appointment, we'll try to engage them and pull them back to your site, kind of revive that lead for you. So come in here and turn these behaviors on. These text messages will come from your CINC phone number and from you. And so what happens is when that message goes out, if that lead replies, you're then looped into the conversation to kind of carry that on. That line of communication has been opened, the lead's replied. You can now reply to that lead and carry on that conversation. All right. The rule around this is because it is automated and behaviors happen very fast on our site, you don't want to overwhelm them with automated messaging because that defeats the purpose. So what we've done is we're only going to send 1 behavioral message per day and 1 of each type every 2 weeks because the messaging isn't changing and it's automated. And so let's walk through that. Let's say I submit a property inquiry today. I'll get a text message from your site And let's say after I submit my property inquiry, I also view the same property 3 times. Well, I'm not going to get that next text because then it's going to be boom, boom, text, and it's going to look very automated. It's not going to look like I'm carrying on a natural conversation with that person. Now, let's say I submit a property inquiry tomorrow after I submitted one today, because that messaging is the same. We don't want it to be back to back because then that removes that human element, making it feel human, like it's coming from you, the agent. So if I submit a property inquiry 2 weeks from now, I'll get that messaging again. All of that is detailed right here in this little blurb above. And it will also be in the recording as well if you want to go back, but know that we're only sending one behavioral message per day and one of each type every 2 weeks to really maintain that kind of element that it's coming from a human and not an automated system. Once you have these behaviors checked, this is determining what behaviors CINC will engage your leads on. One extra step that we have to do here is go to your profile and settings so we can determine when you're notified that these behaviors are performed. So we'll come into profile and settings and go to notifications and look at our behavioral messaging alerts. So on that previous page, if those check boxes are blue, those are the behaviors CINC will engage my leads on. That doesn't determine if I'm notified those behaviors happened. What I want to do here is turn on the behavioral messaging, at least text, maybe email, depending on how you would like to receive it, but turn these on so you're notified when the behavior is performed. The reason we recommend having both. If you just turn the behavior on and that message goes out to a lead and they don't reply, you have no way of knowing unless you happen to be reviewing that lead conversation or you happen to look in your outbox, and that's not a good use of your time. And so for you to be looped in that way, you can also engage with leads based on their behaviors. For the ones that don't reply to that text message, you want to be notified when those behaviors happen. Okay, so come in here and toggle these on. That way, if a lead opens an email after 30 days, that's someone re-engaging with your platform. If they don't reply to that text message from the behavior, you still want to give them a call, try to re-engage them and pull them back to your site. If a lead views any property 10 times in 7 days, that's a really active home searcher. But if they don't reply to that behavioral message, you're just sitting there waiting on them to perform another behavior rather than saying, hey, they're active, let me go ahead and give them a call or reach out to them via email or try to continue that text message with a follow-up to what the behavior was. Okay, so turn on both of those. Turn on the behaviors under the automations tab and turn on the notifications to yourself under the messaging alerts. Kayla, before we flip into auto tracks, because it's a little more involved, do we have any behavioral messaging questions?
No, we're all caught up on questions.
Awesome. Well, with that, we will jump into auto tracks. And before we jump into just building one out and going for it, I am going to show you what those different types of auto tracks look like on a lead, just so you can get a better understanding of what each of those 3 types does and how it applies to a lead profile. I'm going to open up my test lead I've added here. I'm going to click over to our auto tracks tab. And right now I am manually applying, but don't worry, this is the automations webinar. I will show you how to automate these in the future on our call. But right now I'm just going to manually apply these. And the first thing I'm going to do is going to be that sequence type. So if you're looking at an auto track template, kind of right here, and it says day campaign, if it tells you how many days of a campaign it is, that's a key indicator that it is a sequence type. If it says 5 checklist items, that's a checklist auto track. If it says 12 calendar items, that's the calendar type. So the first one we're going to look at is going to be that sequence type. So we know it's a 60-day campaign. Okay, and so now we've automated the sequence so that no matter what lead or when this auto track gets applied, it's going to be standardized follow-up, that automated follow-up to keep them on the right track. It's going to go day 1, day 10, day 11, day 25, and you kind of see each of the steps. I can click into a preview of the texts and emails. I can see when it's supposed to send, who it's supposed to go to and from. So that next type is going to be a calendar type auto track. I'm going to give it just a minute. Sometimes if I add them back to back, it's a little slow to pop up on my Zoom share. I'm just going to go ahead and do a hard refresh. I always hate doing that because it takes longer. but this will show you what the calendar auto track looks like. Okay, so here we have the calendar auto track type. You'll notice that it went ahead and skipped the dates that have already passed. So it's smart enough to know that, hey, if this date passed, I can go ahead and skip it, but I can continue with the rest of the auto track. You're not having to continually update this and delete months as the year passes. It'll automatically pick up with that next one for Father's Day right here. All right, and that last one is going to be our checklist type auto track. And I'm gonna go ahead and refresh. Does it to me every time. That checklist will always apply right as I hit the refresh button on that last part. One day I'll learn. All right, there we go. And here is our checklist type. As you can see, it's a series of tasks. My creative juices weren't working too well this morning, so I just named them tasks 1 through 5. But yours will obviously have more detail to them because they're usually tied to contract to close, pre-listing tasks, post-appointment tasks, those kinds of things. I mentioned the real value comes because when stuff is due or when tasks are due or when paperwork is due for your contracts, it kind of varies, task to task. So you're not going to be able to just say, hey, every 5 days this task is due. So you'll kind of create the list of tasks. And once it's applied, you can come in and start adding those due dates of when each of those specific tasks will be due. So I'll assign the checklist. I'll come to task 1 and I'll update when this is due. So I'll just say it's due on the 11th. I'll save, and then I can come in. I can do that for each of those tasks as I come through, and I can kind of really update that and make sure that I'm getting the right due dates for each of those. Okay. So those are the 3 types of auto tracks. And I'm going to flip in now to our automations tab under our auto track dashboard so we can start going through the how to build out. So when you first click automations, you'll be dropped into your auto tracks dashboard. And this is going to show you all of the auto tracks that you have, how many are active, how many are paused, and a list of those auto tracks. Your view here will vary depending on your user level. So if you're a broker, you're going to see everything here with yours at the top, followed by the rest of your teams at the bottom, and then all of your paused at the very bottom. If you're an agent level user, you're just going to see what's yours, and then everything else that's public from another team member. Okay, so private and public, we'll go through those here and again in a moment. But because we have them right here, we'll go ahead and talk about it. A private template is locked down to just the user that created it. So I created it. It can only be used for my leads and myself. On this one, Jen created a public one. A public auto track can be applied to any lead regardless of who they're assigned to and can be used by other team members on your team. So this is one where if a site owner or a broker level user created a standard auto track for the entire company, it would be a public auto track, and then that could flow for the entire company. If you wanted each of your agents to pick up and build their own auto tracks, they could build them as private. That way any of their personal content and their auto track is not shared with leads of another agent. On this page, I'm also able to determine if I would like this to stay active. I can click here and go active, pause, disable, delete. This is a demo site, so don't worry, these numbers do work in real time. Our open and click rates, we're just not sending anything out to our fake emails and stuff on our test site. On yours, you'll actually see an open and click rate for the overall campaign. And then if you click on the leads, you'll see that open and click rate for each of your individual leads that are assigned to that auto track. Also, if you need to complete any reminders or tasks while you're here, you can click on the lead profile and have that slide over and work directly from that auto track tab to complete any steps. If you need to edit an auto track, you can. Like if this one's already active and applied to these leads. So if I go through and I hit edit, it'll pause it where it is. I won't have to restart it or do a lot of other steps there, but it'll let me pause it. It'll pause in place. I'll make my adjustments, and then when I save it and activate it again, it'll pick right back up where it left off. All right, so that's the auto track dashboard here, but the big thing that you need to know and want to know is, how do I build one of these and how do I automate it? So let's go ahead and click on Start Edit Auto Track, and this is going to drop you into our Auto Track template builder. All right, and so you can see there's just 4 steps to getting an auto track created. And you can see, especially looking at one of our test sites, how quickly this template section can kind of get overwhelming and trying to find what you're looking for. So if your team has used these in the past, if you're just really looking to help narrow down what you're looking at, if you're looking for your templates that you've created already, you can narrow down to your templates. If you're wanting to build one from scratch, click down to blank templates. And if you just want to look at something CINC's already created that you can make a couple tweaks to and make it your own, click on CINC templates. It just kind of removes all of the extra noise from your platform that may have accumulated, as your team has utilized this feature. So I'm going to take my own advice and I'm going to click down to just CINC templates, and I'm going to grab a re-engagement campaign. I'm just going to click here, and we can see, okay, get a little preview of the template. So I can click into each of the messages, make sure like, okay, this is something I like, don't love it, but I can work with it. Or this is the one I want to go with it, or no, it's not, and then I can look around at other ones. But let's say this is the one I liked. I clicked on it, I went through the messages, I'm like, okay, this is it. I'll make a couple tweaks, but I'm good here. So what I'll do is I'll hit copy template, and that's going to drop us into step 2. Actually, I'm going to go back. I want a okay. All right, I'm going to grab that template. I'll explain why in just a moment. Okay, so when you grab a template, sometimes you'll notice that the template has a time that's highlighted in red, letting you know, hey, this step isn't compliant. You'll notice on the other template I built, there was a lot out of compliance, and it's because it's outside these communication windows. And so I just didn't want you to sit here while I corrected every little thing. So I went ahead and just found a smaller one. So you select your template in step 1, dropped into the template builder or editor in step 2. What I'll be able to do is I'll be able to adjust the name. We recommend naming it something that your entire team understands what's being sent. You don't want to name it Auto Track 1. That doesn't tell you anything. But if I know that, hey, this is COVID new seller copy, this is specifically trying to target sellers in the time of COVID pandemic. You'll be able to choose your audience. So this is a seller specific auto track. So I've narrowed down to just seller and buyer seller, but you'll be able to determine your audience when you select your auto track. Who is this designed for? You'll be able to choose your communication time frame. 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. You can include Saturdays, or you can choose to skip holidays. And then you'll be dropped into the actual steps here. You'll notice that immediately something was highlighted in red. This lets me know that, hey, this step is not compliant with the rules. You need to make some adjustments. And I can quickly see, all right, this is set to send at 6 a.m. This is at 8 a.m. So I need to come in here and click edit. And I'm just going to scroll down to the time. And I'm going to update that. All right. I can click on the pencil of any of the steps here if I need to make adjustments to any of the content that is within each of those steps. So like I said, as you read through that template, if you notice anything that you wanted to adjust or tweak, you can do so coming in here. You can either adjust it in the body itself, or if you have a template that you would like to exchange it for, you can go ahead and exchange for a specific template that you have created in your platform. Sending immediately if the auto track is applied is only available on the very first step. All of the other ones are going to have the option to send at a specific time, and you'll update. But now let's say that I want to add additional steps, and then I might want to extend it longer than 10 days. What I'll be able to do is I can hit add step here, or I can click into each day and I can add a step that way. Either option is going to give me the ability to add the step, and then I can move it where it needs to go later. I'm going to hit add step, and I'm just going to do an email. And again, because my brain isn't super creative today, I'm just going to go ahead and grab one of these predetermined templates, but you can certainly take the time to craft the message exactly how you would like it. I will say to choose to send after the previous step is completed, and I'll just say send it an hour later, or I can choose to send at a specific time, either one, and update. I can do that with email or text messaging as well. And I can also add reminders. When I'm adding reminders, it's still going to be able to add the 3 types of reminders: the call reminder, email reminder, and other reminder. But within auto tracks, we have a standard reminder as well as a blocking reminder. So let's add the standard reminder first. So if we add a standard reminder, I'm still able to determine if it's call, email, or other. So I'm following up in the right format. A standard reminder acts the same as any reminder you manually set on a lead. Okay, so this is just like adding a reminder like if you did it manually, okay? We also have what's called a blocking reminder. So if I add a blocking reminder, I can check this box here and it's going to block it. And this is now a blocking reminder. And this will stop the clock and prevent future steps from firing until reminder is completed. Okay, so maybe certain steps that come after your blocking reminders don't make sense if that reminder hasn't been completed. Maybe you're sending information that you're then following up with a phone call, or maybe you had a call and the email follow-up doesn't make sense if you didn't actually get connected or make that phone call. So blocking reminders will stop the clock and prevent all future steps from firing until it's completed. When it completes, it will pick back up and continue along with the rest of your steps there. So let's see, if we move that blocking reminder to the end of day 3, what would happen is email would go out, blocking reminder. Stops the clock at day 3. And then as soon as that reminder is completed, it picks back up at day 3, goes day 4, day 5, day 6, and then sends an email on day 7. Right? Once you've added and adjusted all of the steps, those are how you add steps: emails, texts, and reminders. You also have the ability to add additional days. So you're not just able to add content, you're actually able to extend those out for longer than they have. So let's add a new day. When you add a new day in the sequence, it's going to immediately populate the next available day. So this is day 10. If I add a new day, it'll be day 11, but I'm able to adjust that after I get the day added.
Mike, can I interrupt while you're there? And can you show one more time how to add the blocking reminder?
Yeah, absolutely. So anytime you add a reminder, you just set blocking. And then you continue your reminder as normal. You can still choose the type of reminder. You're just adding in that blocking reminder, preventing it from going forward.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Anything else?
Nope, that was it.
Cool. So like I said, adding a new day. So we're extending this out. I've added all the additional steps that I want to what the current days, but let's go ahead and extend this for longer than 10. I'll add new day. It's immediately going to add that as day 11, but I can adjust that later. So I'm going to add a text. I'm going to grab a template and I'm going to update. So now I've added more days. Once I have those new days added, I'm able to extend that out so I can edit the day and I can make that day, 15, day 20, whatever I need that to be. All right. And that is how I edit the content of my steps. So it's a pretty standard kind of just like click, add, edit your content, and then kind of move on from there. It's pretty standardized. The big thing to look at here is if you have questions about, am I adding this the right way? Does this make sense? Reach out to frontline support or your account manager. They're not just there for bugs or things that go wrong. They're also there for those quick how-tos, those one-offs to verifying that you've set something up the right way. So if you have any questions as you're going through and building this out, definitely rely on our teams as a resource. So once I've added my steps, I've adjusted everything the way I want it, I can hit continue, and then that will go into step 3. And this is where we'll get into what this webinar is all about, automating this auto track. So with auto tracks, we have a couple options. We can automatically start auto tracks, we can automatically end auto tracks, and we can set up future actions when auto tracks complete. So let's go through our start triggers first. I can trigger off of a new lead. And the auto track must be public for you to be able to trigger something on new lead. So you can't have your private ones going off of new lead. But if you have a public auto track, you'll be able to set that with the new lead trigger. I can trigger by applying a label. So the label has to be created first, and then I can choose it in the drop down here. So I know when I apply that auto track or that label, it's going to kick this auto track off on a go forward basis. Anyone who has this label will not automatically get this auto track. It's looking for the actual action of applying the label, not the label itself. So any of your triggers here are going forward only. They're not retroactive and won't just automatically apply to any of your leads that already have any of these trigger criteria. All right. I can choose to trigger by a specific pipeline stage. Maybe this is an appointment follow-up, and I have a couple different things that I send out as part of following up on appointments that I've had. So I could do appointment set as the pipeline stage. So once I set the appointment, I know that I need to communicate a couple different things about the appointment. I can automate that by moving the lead to appointment set. We have a feature on our site called landing pages where you can offer teaser content, essentially just like, hey, here's a little bit of information to register for full info, and then you can have full information. That's a feature that's available to brokers and agents at no additional cost. We just create some squeeze pages, generate some additional leads. But when you create those, typically we've seen them run for, first-time home buyers, VA home loans, get more money when you sell. They're all offering some type of information. And rather than a lead registering and you having to send that information after they register, you could automate that. As soon as they register on a landing page, you automatically send them the first-time home buyer info. You automatically send them, how to get more money when they sell, that kind of thing. You can trigger off of a custom field. So custom fields are a feature that your brokers and site owners can add to the site that add additional fields to the info tab of a lead profile that allow you to track information that we don't track for you, such as purchase date or birth date. So if you have those custom fields and you input the birth date into that field, you can have that trigger, a birthday auto track. And I can do it with specific sources. So if I only want this to go to Zillow leads, or I only want this to go to Facebook leads, I only want this to go to Google leads, I can determine that as well. And I can do multiple sources at once, which is a definite upgrade because like 2 years ago, you used to have to create a different auto track for each of the types of sources. So that's awesome. You can have multiple sources on one auto track now. So that's how you start trigger everything. But certain auto tracks will need to be ended automatically so as to not send information that's no longer relevant. So let's say I can end with a label. Just by applying that label, it will turn it off. Typically the labels are a good one I've seen used for like bad phone number or bad email campaigns. So you'll apply a bad phone number label to start the auto track, and then you'll apply a good phone number label or something to end it. That way, if they update their contact info, you can apply the label in the auto track. You can move it to a certain pipeline stage. So maybe this is about getting your contact leads to set appointments. And so I know that, hey, at the end of the day, once I've set the appointment, I don't need this to continue any longer. I can end that at appointment set. And then some of the auto tracks you use are just designed to get that lead to reply, to open that line of communication. So if they reply or they reach out, it needs to end. It doesn't make sense anymore for them to receive information if they're already communicating with you. So I can choose to end an auto track when a lead replies or reaches out. All right, and then there are a couple options I have when an auto track completes. The most common option that you will take is to take no further action. I can also choose to automatically restart the same auto track. There's not many instances that would apply, but you have the ability to do so. This next one here, I have the ability to automatically start another auto track. This is commonly used to kind of daisy chain your calendar templates together. Our calendar auto tracks are built for a year at a time right now, so we know what calendar year to pull in the dates for. The update that should be coming in the next couple months is going to allow you to create that for 5 years at a time. But right now, calendar-based auto tracks are built a year at a time. So rather than remembering in December to trigger all of your 2022 auto tracks, I can choose to daisy chain those together and know that, hey, when one completes, it automatically picks up with the next auto track. All right. For an auto track to be an option here, it has to be created first. So if you're looking at kind of daisy chaining like 5 years of holiday auto tracks together, build them all at once and then go back into each one and choose which one they link to. Also, if triggers are just a little daunting and overwhelming when you're not actually in the process of applying it, in real time, absolutely come back to us and say, hey, this is my goal. What are the best triggers? We can really help you. We've talked to tons of clients and tons of markets and tons of team, styles and builds. And so if you're worried about this, because the last thing you want to do is send communication to the wrong leads or over communicate and cause unsubscribes. So if you have a lot of automation in there, you need to make sure that one, you understand what all is automated, when it's automated, and how. And so making sure that you understand the goal of each of your auto tracks is going to help you determine your triggers and make sure that you're not, duplicating efforts, sending 2 auto tracks to the same lead, that kind of thing. So really be careful and cautious with how you automate this, especially if you're doing it for your entire team. We've seen a couple times where team leads have turned things on and their whole team wasn't aware. So just make sure you have an open, honest conversation if you're going to turn all of this on. But it is a great opportunity to automate for all of those different scenarios. You talk to leads all the time, get all kinds of different information from them, and so you can have all kinds of different follow-up based on that conversation that you have with them. So lots of good opportunity here. Just make sure you really understand it. And if you have any questions, talk to frontline support or your account manager. We're happy to help make sure it's set up properly. All right, and the last thing we'll do is save settings. And that will allow us to go through and review and finalize. We'll review what our rules are that we set up in step 1 and step 2, excuse me. We'll look at and review all of the information that we added, all that good content. I can review each of those again by clicking on and viewing the preview. And I'll hit save and exit as my second to final step. And now it's saved successfully. And what I can do is I can publish the auto track. That means it's going to be active. If I publish this and there's triggers involved and there's triggers on, those triggers will take immediate effect. And on a go forward basis, if any of those triggers are met, that auto track will go off. I can just choose to exit the wizard, and that will save this auto track as a paused auto track. And I can update that in the future, activate it when I'm ready. I can choose to make another auto track that will also save this one as paused in my auto track dashboard, but it will drop me back into step 1 where I can build another template. I'm just going to exit the wizard. So this one comes across as paused. And that drops us back into our dashboard. And I can see here in my list right here is my auto track that I created today. It's paused, and now I can come in here and say, okay, I want this to be active now. Right. So that is our behavioral messaging and auto tracks automations webinar. Kayla, do we have any questions for the end?
None about the automations that we have not already covered. I did get a couple of questions about the recording, so I'll just reiterate that it will be at cincommunity.com/webinars. It'll be uploaded probably by tomorrow. We just have to give time for Zoom to process and get everything uploaded. So I would check tomorrow at cincommunity.com/webinars. It will be in the recording gallery. That's also where you can, of course, register for other upcoming webinars and watch recordings on other topics. And then finally, I do have one follow-up that I have to give. So if I was not able to get an answer for you during the chat, just look for a follow-up either from me or from support. And yeah, then we're all caught up from there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for attending our automations webinar today to learn more about behavioral messaging and auto tracks. Tomorrow we will be hosting an AI webinar at 3 p.m. So definitely check that out so we can see you on there. We'll start doing that monthly as well for some more automation opportunities there. Thank you again. We'll again have this along with all of our other webinars that we've recorded this week up on cincommunity.com/webinar. And we'll also send you an email tomorrow with a link to all of our recordings from this week. Have a great day and we'll see you next time.
Bye, everybody.